Hello and welcome. This is Mouse Gunner, and Steam Summer Sales are currently going on, and as a result, I'd like to start a special series where I take a look at games that I think are interesting that are currently on sale. And the first game we're going to be looking at, Pike and Shot, is a game that I have been keeping my eye on for some time. I saw it was on sale, so I ended up picking it up. So this is more or less also going to be kind of a first impressions series or video for this particular game, because I haven't put a lot of time into it, maybe just a couple hours. But in any case, what is Pike and Shot? Well, it's a historically based, and when I say historically based, I mean 15th century to around about the 17th century, turn-based strategy game. And this game is very much all about the battles. There is a campaign mode, but it is kind of simplistic in the way that it works. And really, the meat of the game is the battle. So as a result, we're not going to take a look at the campaign, although I have taken a look at it myself. More or less, my experience is going through the tutorials, which are actually fairly lengthy, and a little bit of the campaign. So I have an idea of how that works. But what I'm going to be doing for this video is I'm going to be taking a look at the historical scenarios. The main difference between the historical scenarios and the campaigns is oftentimes you can select more or less the same thing. So I'm going to be selecting the same scenario that I was playing a campaign of, which is the English Civil War. So this particular scenario takes place in England in 1643. The rift between the king and parliament has finally led to civil war. The first major battle at Edge Hill in Warwickshire last year was indecisive. All over the country, local forces are amassing in support of king or parliament. You also have a few other choices, as well as the tutorial, which I mentioned. Now, the tutorial takes you through events of the 30 Years' War, which is a prominent element of this game, as this is the time period that the 30 Years' War was going on, and I think it is kind of the focus of the game. So in the tutorial, you are showcased different forces, so you get an idea of the different troop types you more than likely are going to encounter. So you have the Swedish army first, and then you move on to the Imperial Army led by Austria. And then you have an army, I think it was called the Transylvanian Army, although Romanian troops, more or less. I think a combination Romanian-Hungarian, actually. It gives you an idea of some different troop types and different strategies and different battles that you can do. So with that being said, let's jump right into the English Civil War. The other campaigns we have, as I mentioned, the 30 Years' War, which is going to involve all of these nations, and it's going to, I think it depends on the actual scenario or campaign, what time period you're going to start in. Some of them are pretty far into 30 Years' War, and then some of them start at the beginning. We have the Italian Wars, which actually starts you at a much earlier date of 1495. I poked around with this a little bit. This, I don't think, as much as it sounds interesting, I'm not going to do because it is quite a bit different than the way the rest of the game plays, but it is an interesting thing to consider, the fact that you have such widely varying time periods. The armies and the tactics used change quite a bit over those time periods, so you're going to have to change to fit those times. And then finally, we have, I'm not exactly sure what this is. Is this a much wider scoped grand campaign? So it says between the end of the Italian Wars in 1559 and the beginning of the 30 Years' War in 1618. So it's, I guess, a number of things that that are going on in between those time periods that are of historical significance. But as I said, we're going to go with the English Civil War because it's something that I have a little bit more experience with, having done a little bit of the campaign, and we'll jump right in here. So we just select that. So as I said, I poked around a little bit with that Italian War campaign, and because of the time period difference, you're going to see different troops. So a lot of things that you see, or I'm going to talk about here, will be slightly different in that time period. All right, so the Battle of Stratton and Cornwall, this is in May of 1643. The Earl of Stamford's parliamentarian army outnumbers ours and is blocking our route to the east. They are deploying in a strong position on a hill. However, they have sent most of their horse away to secure Bodmin. Our general, Sir Randolph Hopton, has decided that a rapid attack while the rebel forces are divided is our best hope of victory. And I apologize if I'm not pronouncing these things in the proper English way. So it sounds like we are the royalist side. Okay. Well, that's what side I was in the campaign as well. So let's go ahead and select this. You don't necessarily have to do the first mission. You could do other ones if you want. And it's possible that, and then as a matter of fact, in the very next battle, it looks like we are the parliamentarian forces in the next battle. So depends on which battle you are in. But anyway, as I was saying, the main difference between the historical scenarios and the campaigns, which I don't know if I covered, is that the historical battles are individual set pieces. They don't really affect one another. You can just play them freely. Whereas the campaign, you're going to have a campaign map, which is simplistic in scope, but every battle you have will carry into the next. So troops that you lose are lost afterwards. Troops will gain experience. They'll progress. So there's a lot more progression overall, one battle leading into the next, whereas this one, they're segregated, more or less. All right, let's go ahead and select. All right, so the first thing we're going to get is we're going to get a lay of the land. We're going to get the battlefield itself. So looks like we're going to be possibly on the... Are they on the offensive or defensive? The enemy forces outnumber ours and have the advantage of higher ground. Well, that doesn't sound good. But we have better and more numerous horse than them, so cavalry might win the day for us. And loyal Cornishmen are more than a match for the lackeys of Parliament. So it sounds like both our infantry and our cavalry are better quality. Our troops are deployed for an assault on the hill, while our pikes... with our pikes in 4 strong columns. Okay, our musketeers in front to clear a path for them. All right. So we get an idea of what the battle is and what we are going to be doing. So now we have to deploy our troops. Now there are 2 different colors for each of the troops. There's blue and then there's a white circle. Well, blue troops are for sure going to be in the battle. You don't get a choice of that. They are always going to be in the battle. The ones with the white circle are your choice. You can spend some of your deployment points, which we have 210, to hire them. So if we go down the list here, we can see what our troops are going to be like. So we've got separately deployed Cornish pikemen. So this is a little bit different than my normal experience. Usually speaking, the backbone of your army is going to be what is called Pike and Shot, the very name of the game, which is a combination of pikemen in the front and musketmen in the back. In this case, we have detached the pikemen entirely, and they are separate units. And it looks like our musketmen might be the same thing. So, yeah, separately deployed Cornish musketeers. So, quite a bit different than what I'm used to seeing. With Pike and Shot, you can both shoot and engage in close combat. So just taking a look at this particular troop, we see 3 stats. We have a sword, which is their close combat ability, quite high for the Cornish pikemen. We have a gun, which is going to be their range combat ability, understandably non-existent. And then we have armor value. This is just going to let you know if they have armor, and if they do have armor, how heavy it is. We have 0 armor, so these are more or less unarmored men. Then we have troop type, determined foot, special unit features. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but or what this word is, but it says immune to ill effects of flank attacks, ignores enemy zone of controls, can charge any mounted troops. These are actually pretty special because oftentimes Pike and Shot, they cannot charge a cavalry unit. So there are going to be limitations of every unit. Another thing that's really nice here is if we get flanked, not really that big of a deal from what we see here. Unfortunately, we cannot purchase any more of these guys as we are maxed out. The other ones that say 0 to 2, those we can purchase more. Currently, we have 2 on the battlefield, and then we could add in up to 2 more. So we have got Royalist Cavaliers. These I am familiar with because these were in the campaign. The Flamboyant Royalist Horse, derogatorily called Cavaliers by their dour parliamentarian foes, deliver a fierce charge but may get carried away in pursuit of a fleeing foe. So again, we have the same stats, and then we also have troop type Cavaliers, troop quality above average. We didn't go over the troop quality here. Above average, armor unarmored, and capabilities Pike. Here we have armored, so we do see a armor value in that armor stat, which is 33, and then impact mounted, and they have a pistol that they use in melee. So what impact mounted means is that we're going to do as far as I understand, we're going to do a decent amount of impact damage, which is damage during a charge. Okay, we have dragoons. Dragoons are going to be mounted infantry with muskets. So this is... think of them more as mobile infantry. So dragoons, extra negative modifier on own cohesion test for losing close combat and open terrain versus mounted troops, or heavy mixed or determined foot. So more or less anything that's not light infantry that attacks us in close combat is going to cause us problems. Our troop quality is average. We don't have any armor, but we do have a musket. So we do see a range value finally. We've got light guns. Light guns, there's two different gun types that I've seen so far, light and medium. Medium, you can't really move. Once they're there, they're there. You can rotate them, but that's about it. Light guns, you can move around. Now, we only start with one, so if we want to get more than that, we'd want to buy it. The main advantage of guns is that they have longer range than you'll see from the musketmen. And then finally, we have the separately deployed Cornish Musketeers, and they are Lightfoot. So before, when we were talking about types of troops, when we were seeing the Dragoons and their disadvantage, if a light infantry type like this, Lightfoot, were to attack them, they wouldn't lose their cohesion. But if determined foot or cavalry did attack them, that would be the case. So just to explain that really quickly, the same thing happens with these guys. So extra negative modifier on cohesion test for losing close combat and open terrain versus mounted troops and so on. And then yet again, we have the three different stats. So we're unarmored and our capabilities are a musket. So now that we've gone over that, let's go ahead and buy our troops. So most of these troops are fairly cheap. I am going to definitely buy a gun, and we'll see that that white circle turns into a blue circle. And if you want to know where your troops are, you can actually see them here on the map by just looking at them. So it looks like our musketeers are all in the center along with our light guns, and then we have a couple of our pikemen here, and then we have another one over here on the flank along with some more musketmen. It looks like most of our cavalry is deployed over here. Now, I did mention that cavalry was going to be a big element of our victory, and I think that is true from this time period. So I am going to hire 2 more Royalist Cavaliers. And outside of that, we could go with more Musketeers. How much do we have? We've got 82 left. I think probably the Musketeers are going to be the best use of our expenditure, because 2 times 38, that's almost 40. So there we go. We only have 6 left over, and we only had 1 unit that we didn't purchase there, and that was a choice of pretty much I chose the light gun over the Dragoons. All right, now we've done all that, let's go ahead and proceed. We know where our troops are, and now we're going to be in the deployment mode. This is where we can fine-tune where our troops are going to be. Oh, wow, it looks like the English are... Something's going on with my key bindings here where the Q key is not rotating properly. Maybe I can get that to work here in a... I don't know what that is doing. Normally Q key rotates, but you've got your WASD controls to move around the map, and then you've got your E key. So right now we're in deployment mode, as I was saying, where you can move your troops around as you so choose. But I'm noticing that we have enemy troops right up in our face right away. So we've got commanded shot. If we want to know a little bit more about a unit, we hold in the control key and we left click. So we can see commanded shot, small body of separately deployed musketeers, useful for supporting mounted troops. So troop type, commanded shot, so on, protected against mounted troops. If they have friendly mounted troops, so that's an important thing to know. If they are protected against us charging them with mounted troops if they have a friendly mounted troop somewhere nearby. So that's interesting. That is going to be a big element of this game, is sometimes you won't be able to charge just anyone. You'll have certain priority targets. So it looks like we're already set up in a way that we're going to be immediately tangling with these commanded shot. Then we've got our light guns. See if we can look around the map a little bit here. So, yeah, they just have lines of... I'm guessing they're doing this to skirmish us a little bit. So this is almost like a skirmish line. Looks like we're open up here, and then we have Now that's the Pike and Shot that I was talking about. Notice that they do have a shoot value. We also see their percentage. So if you look in the lower right, you see musket 66%, pike 34%. So that's more or less their unit composition. So a lot of Pike and Shot up on this hill. So the thing with Pike and Shot is the pikemen are up front. You really don't want to charge them head on. So if we're using our cavalry to win the day for us, we're going to want to attack these guys either when they're already broken up a little bit in morale or from the flanks or behind, which is going to be tricky to do unless we have them preoccupied. So just a ton of Pike and Shot. Now, terrain is going to affect your ability to fight. So if you're attacking somebody that's at a higher level than you, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And the more that difference is, the more the disadvantage is going to be. So these guys on the high ground are definitely going to give us some trouble. Okay, well, let's go ahead and showcase what deployment looks like. So here's our deployment box. So I can redeploy this unit anywhere in this deployment zone as I choose. So I'm going to go ahead and move this guy right here. Oop, right click to move, left click to select, and you will oftentimes have a choice of what it is you want to do. I could rotate, for example, and face a different facing if I wanted to. So that's oftentimes where you have to confirm the move just to make sure that you're moving as you wish. And then I'm going to deploy my pikemen in here right next to the musketmen. I think my game plan here... Oh, it doesn't let me redeploy the pikemen. Interesting. Well, it does, but nowhere near where they are. So you oftentimes have limitations. Again, the Q key is not doing rotation. I don't know why. It was working just fine earlier. All right. I am probably going to want to rotate my light guns. We can see a couple things here, line of sight being an important one. So a big thing with your range units is you want them to be within a certain arc in front of you to be able to get the most damage. If they're not quite in that arc, you'll get reduced damage. So more than likely, I'm going to want to rotate my gun here to correspond with that arc because there's nobody directly in front of me right now. So if I want to be able to do the most damage with this light gun, I'm going to want to rotate. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, as far as my musketeers go, I'm just going to go ahead and pair them. I could get them even closer. That would mean they would do more damage. I'm just going to go ahead and pair them on up with their enemies. So we'll put this guy there. And this guy is fine right there. The light gun, that's fine. That facing is just going to work perfectly. Okay, musketeer, put you right here. Pikemen, I can move slightly. And then we have no real opposition over here, so I don't see a reason why not to redeploy this musketman. So I'll put him right here. And we'll try and gun that guy down. Now, as far as the cavalry goes, I've said that weird, cavalry. I would like to charge this guy almost immediately if I can, because we know that they won't like that very much. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my cavaliers. Do we have any that are exceptionally good as far as experience? I don't think so. I would say so if we did. So I'll go ahead and rotate you as well so that you're more or less facing right where I want you to go. Now, the rest of my cavalry, I'm just going to let go forward, more or less. Granted, there might not be a bad idea to just sweep through and try and wipe out their musketmen as much as I possibly can. So that is a strategy I could utilize, is to just charge their musketmen and try and sweep them away. Oh, I'm standing on rough ground. That might not be a good idea. I don't know if that's actually penalizing these guys or not. Let's just move slightly over just to get that out of the way. Okay, now as far as my cavalry goes, do I want to try and come after the flanks here? Because I have all my cavalry over here. I don't really see the benefit of that, because there's nothing over here to really fight. So I'm going to try and use my cavalry to sweep the Because oftentimes how you win battles, as we can see here, our objectives, is to rout as many troops as you can. So if we can rout these troops early, I figure why not? So I'm going to focus more of my cavalry on the flanks here. And then the dragoons, again, I don't see a point in having them go all the way up here. Not unless we want to flank with them, but I just see that really hard to pull off unless I have my supporting infantry in position. So I think we're better off just trying to sweep the enemy here. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy the dragoons along this corridor here. Okay. So that's going to be my deployment. So I just hit end turn when I'm done. And it looks like I get first turn. So let's go ahead and click on our Royal Cornish Musketeers. And we can see exactly what it's talking about. So this is the fire arc. This means that he's in full fire arc and I'll get full damage. And we can see how many casualties I will inflict here on the enemy. So 0 to 2. That's not a lot. And that's partly because they're in cover. And then over here, we'll note that I'm in half arc of fire. So if you look at the description here, it says half arc of fire versus full arc of fire. And we'll notice that the casualties are all the way down to 0. So that's not particularly good. Now, my cannon, on the other hand, apparently doesn't really cover or care about that cover. So we can go ahead and open up on this guy. And again, we see full arc of fire because I rotated my cannon. So we're going to go ahead and open up on this guy. Unfortunately, we didn't roll particularly well, so we rolled a 0 there. Let's go ahead and use our other cannon here. And we rolled terribly yet again. There is a bit of RNG in this game. That is for sure. So what I'm going to want to do here is just move up to make my shooting units a little bit more effective. There's going to be something that happens when I do this, though. Notice that I just got shot at. The enemy will react, and it's giving me tooltips here. We could turn this off, but that's okay. The enemy has reacted to our unit by shooting at it. So there's more or less like kind of an Overwatch whenever you do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue to walk forward a little bit. Although we did make ourselves more effective already. Let's move the pikemen up now. The one thing that's really cool about that is because I had this guy absorb the shots, the pikemen can come up and not really get affected. Now, unfortunately, we can't charge this turn because we're not close enough to initiate the charge, but we could at least close distance. Now, I can charge with my musketmen, but I don't think that that's really a good idea. We get an idea of what would happen here, though. So 21% chance we would 21% chance we'd win in the impact. That's the initial charge. And then we have a 42% chance after that and each subsequent melee round to win. Honestly, it looks like we are quite a bit of an advantage against these guys. I mean, just looking at our raw stats. So I actually don't see a problem with just charging here. We could shoot instead, but it doesn't look like we do that many casualties. And it seems like our chance to win is fairly high, and we could always charge with subsequent units. Now, once you charge, you're going to take that unit out of the equation as far as shooting. They're no longer going to be able to be shot at. So that's fine, though. And it also will work the same way. So they're attempting to evade. So apparently they are a unit that does evade. But what did we just do? We got their cover from them. So in the future, we could fire at them and be at a defensive just like they had. So we can't quite initiate this charge, but what I can do is I can march my men up here. We can rotate so that we have got a full, and then we'll shoot. We didn't do a lot of damage there, but that's okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move our cavalry up. Now, because these guys evaded, what they more or less do is they flee away from contact. Some units are capable of doing that. But if you have something like cavalry attacking them, they're going to have a lot harder time with that. So I think we're just going to go ahead and rotate to face because we know where we're going to end up. Your facing does really matter, though, as far as flanks and things go. So this is why I moved the cavalry where I did, in part, because it's going to allow me to be able to pin these guys down. Now, I didn't know that they would do that initially, the evade. So now that I know that, I actually don't want them to evade, because I want to be able to run them down with my cavalry if I can get the option. So instead, I think we're going to move up and just do normal shots here. So we're going to get some return fire here. It doesn't look like moving up any closer increased our chance to do damage. We're going to move up. Now, we don't have any cavalry in the center, unfortunately, so... Okay, we took 1 damage. That's not too bad. And we're going to return fire. Do 3. That looks good to me. Okay. And we're going to fire. And then we're going to bring up the pikemen to support. Okay, so again with our shot here, we might even be able to get into cover. So, might as well. Okay, we took 1 damage, took 2 damage, and then we're going to be able to fire and do 2 damage. We already used our cannon, so at this point we're just going to move forward with the musketeers, and this guy already fired, so he's not going to be able to react to us, and we do 1 damage. Now my cavalry is going to move up to put ourselves in position to attack. My dragoons are going to move up. They're going to get a full fire here, and they're going to fire. And then this guy is... I'll use this guy first. Fire. We're going to return fire, so we're doing a lot more damage here than they're doing to me. And I'm just going to go ahead and rotate so that we're going to get him full arc fire and fire. Okay. We can't charge just yet. We can charge with our cavalry, though, so... Do we want to, though, is the question. And I don't think we do, because we want to be able to overrun him, which we're not necessarily going to be able to do. So, I don't want to block my line of fire, but I do want to put my cavalry in a position to charge him next turn. I'm not going to rotate, though, because if he backs up, I still want to be able to charge him next turn. And then our pikemen are just going to come in behind, and they will rotate to face. Okay, I believe that's everybody moved. We can check by clicking this button, next on moved. We don't have anybody, so we're going to go ahead and hit end turn now. Now, we're going to have residual shooting. Anyone that didn't shoot is going to get a chance to shoot, so the cannons are going to have a little bit of shooting here. We took a little bit of damage. Now we have a melee phase. If people were locked in melee, they would be fighting right now, but we don't have any of that, so now we're just going to go right on to their turn. We're going to have fire and return fire. Now we're getting a little bit of the worst of this. Okay, and that's all they're firing. It doesn't look like they're going to do much else. Oh, we did have some over here. This guy's pretty much going to be in a lot of trouble here. Okay, so residual shooting. Anyone that didn't get a chance to shoot is now going to shoot, mostly our cannons, which are finally doing stuff. Okay. Melee phase, there's none, so now it's our turn yet again. So more or less that is the scope of play, but we haven't seen a charge yet, and I really want to charge. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to charge here, hoping to be able to catch this guy. As we do have... Okay, we did manage to impact there, so that's actually perfect. So we're going to proceed with that. We didn't do a lot of damage with the charge, but now we can charge with our other troops, so we can get a lot of charges going here. So apparently our impact is not going to be great for this charge, but once we've impacted, our chance of winning is quite high here. So as long as we can maintain the impact, we should be fine. And then our musketeers might as well get involved in this because they seemingly had a really good chance to win here at 90%. So we're more than likely going to absolutely destroy this guy. So we'll come in, impact him. Now the initial impact was not our advantage, but later melee rounds, which we'll see at the end of the turn, is where we're going to do the most damage in that particular engagement. Okay, so our pikeman is going to continue to move here. And we don't have enough action points to rotate, so that's going to be it for that move. And we're going to continue to move, or should we move? Well, I mean, we're in cover. More than likely, though, this guy will turn and fire at our pikemen if we don't move up with him. So, sure, we'll move up with him. We took 0 damage. That's actually quite good. We could engage in combat, but more than likely they would try and evade me again. And considering that that was the end of my move, I wouldn't really be able to chase them. So we don't want that to happen yet again. All right, let's come back over this way. We're going to open up with our cannon. Get, well, a little bit of damage. That's not too bad. And we'll open up with our cannon again. Okay, that was actually decent-ish damage. Oftentimes the cannons can be disappointing with how much damage they do, but hey, it's something. And I think they do a decent job of messing up units as far as morale. Okay, let's go ahead and open up on this guy. We disrupted him. This is good. This is going to drop his morale state and make him easier to break apart later. So more or less, there's different morale states: disrupted, fragmented, and then finally broken. So we've got him on that direction, and you will see the yellow D to indicate that. So we might as well keep continuing to pour fire on this guy. We might even be able to break him without the charge of my cavalry, but might as well charge him anyway. All right, so now we're going to charge him. We got a 58% chance to win with the impact, and then a 100% chance if we survive that round. So charge, going to be a lot of, well, no, not much damage here, but that's okay. And then now we're going to charge in with our pikemen. We've got a 57% chance to win here. So again, not a lot done. I mean, we did win, but we didn't get a lot of casualties there, but hopefully next turn. Now, you have to consider this is not a very big unit, though, so you're not going to be seeing a ton of casualties. I mean, just look at the difference in the unit size of the Cornish pikemen versus the commanded shot. So 87 total men versus 297. So oftentimes that plays a part in how many casualties you're going to be doing. Okay, so we moved all this group. Now it's this group over here. So we're going to start... I think we start here, and we engage in close combat a little bit. See if we can pull it off. If he runs away, then that's fine. But if we engage, then what we can do is come in with our pikemen, perhaps. So that's why I did that. I might not be able to necessarily charge there, but we could... Here, we'll charge here. That guy evaded, so that was bad for us, because what I wanted to do is bring my pikemen in and charge. We might be able to get this one go. So, yeah, so let's try here. Charge. Again, evaded me. Well, that's a bummer, because that means I didn't get my pikemen into the spot I wanted to, because I can't quite get enough action points here to get in on this guy, so that's unfortunate. Doesn't look like we have enough action points to do this one either, so here I think I'm just going to shoot. Because I'm going to do fairly high damage, and we did manage to disrupt them, so that's quite good. Alright, here I'm just going to move into the woods, I think, and we will rotate for the future, so we can charge next turn. And here, we're definitely going to charge with the cavalry. He shouldn't be able to outrun that, so... We took... see, that's bad. We just lost that combat. So, we lost the engagement, more or less, and had to break off. And we did lose... See, this is where a lot of the RNG comes in. That can be a devastating event that just happened to us. So, let's go ahead and just fire into these guys, then. They're going to be able to fire back at me. That was not the ideal, but... Let's see if we missed anybody. Doesn't look like it. Let's go ahead and end turn. So their cannons are going to open up on us. We're going to have our melee phase, which... In a lot of these combats, we had a very high chance of winning. So we just broke him, and now he's going to run. And the victors are going to pursue, which the cavalry should do a fantastic job of doing. Okay. I'm actually surprised this guy's holding out as well as he is. But we are doing a lot more casualties to him than he's doing to me. All right, now it's Parliament's turn. Okay, they're going to shoot at me. Not too surprised with that. We're going to shoot back where we can. And that's more than likely going to be all she wrote. Now, I probably don't want to continue to charge these guys. Our residual shooting. Cannon didn't do a lot there. Melee. So, every turn you're going to have melee, whether it's your turn or not. So, now he's disrupted. That's going to make him a lot easier to defeat in combat. Now he's fragmented. So, even easier to defeat. And then, here we're going to see some of the benefits of that. Still holding out, though. That's pretty amazing. Okay. Now, the pursuing guys, unfortunately, are not going to be very controllable right now. Go ahead and open up with the cannons, just to start things off. Okay. This cannon didn't have a target, and the reason it didn't have a target is because of the close combat here and the fact that all these guys ran away. So we're going to go ahead and move up here. Now you can't move and shoot with a cannon, so that's pretty much it. I would like to engage this guy, but I have a feeling he's going to try and evade me again. Let's just try for it because I think we can get away with it a little bit. Yeah, he just evaded again. So oh, we did manage to hit him eventually, though. So we got a rear attack because he was running. So we're going to have a very advantaged situation there. I don't know if the pikemen are going to be able to catch up, though. They can kind of get there, but not quite. So we can turn into it, but we're going to have to wait until next turn. But now that we have the combat engaged, we're pretty good. Now, that's the advantage of hitting a flank. If you hit a flank, you immediately disrupt them. So or you knock them down a morale status. So, all right, let's go ahead and continue our fighting here. So these guys are disrupted. We're going to continue to shoot at them while we can. Our cavalry is kind of not in a great place right now. These guys... the pursuers we can only limitedly do stuff with because they're too busy pursuing the guys that are fleeting. So for now, I'm just going to use my pikemen to move. I want to be able to bring my musketmen up here. Hopefully we have enough movement to rotate. We don't, but we can at least do a little bit of a shot. Unfortunately, it was not very effective. You do have block line of sight in this game, so this guy here is going to block my line of sight to this guy over here, but we can... Unit can shoot at this enemy unit. Okay, it's not letting me do that, so not really sure why. I might be able to get into a position to do some shooting here if I move here. Yeah, so we've got 0 to 3 and 0 to 1, so we'll go ahead and do this shot. Because my cavalry is disrupted, it's going to actually affect me quite a bit here. I'm going to try and do this charge again. See how bad my chance is now. 80% chance to lose. That's because I'm disrupted. So we might be better off trying to flank him, which I think I'm going to do. Let's get in behind him. That doesn't mean that he could flank me, but if he flanked me, I'd probably be fine with it. I don't know if this guy can evade the charge now, but yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Yeah, so he can't evade because we cut him off. I think we're better advantage there doing that than not. Okay. What else do we need to move here? Well, we can use this fancy button. Okay, we did need to try and charge this guy if we could. Unfortunately, I might spend all my turn rotating. Yeah, we can't get involved just yet, so it's going to be a little bit longer. I'll just shoot here. No point in chasing them. I'm going to move up slightly, because I'm going to be able to do more damage at this range. Alright, so we already got this guy tied up. Let's see, we already moved here. Who else have we not moved? We haven't moved these guys. So it's questionable whether or not we'd be able to get this engagement. More than likely these guys will run. We don't really want them to run, but if we were able to get them in a charge, that would be ideal. I might just have to remain patient here. And wait for my other forces to get into a position, because as I said, these guys will probably run from me. So who else do we need to move? That's it? Alright, let's go ahead and end turn. Okay, we took a lot of damage there from that cannon. Okay, back and forth. Eventually we'll be able to get our pikemen into a position to help us. Okay, that guy's gonna break, which means he's routing, and we'll see the percentage here that we've routed. Another one routed. I think it updates after the turn, though, so we have to wait for that. Oh, this guy rallied, so he's no longer disrupted. That's not good for us. Okay. And we managed to catch this guy and do a little bit more damage. And now it's the Parliament's turn. We'll have to see what they do. I expect that they're just gonna kind of stand and fight with us where they can. We did manage to disrupt that guy. Took a cannon shot, another cannon shot. Oh, that is a ton of damage. So we're disrupted now. That's not good. Okay, residual. So melee. Got that guy to fall back. Now, that's not a break. That's just a fall back. That happens every so often. That can actually screw you up quite a bit when you're trying to engage, because next time I try and engage, I mean, we just got the pikemen into a position, and now we just lost that. That really sucks, really. But, all right. It is what it is. Okay, so it should be my turn. I'm probably going to want to fall back here. We are going to take a shot. And that'll be good enough for now. Okay, so this guy I'm going to move. Oh, I can't move because he was just engaging, huh? Alright, let's just return fire here. Just have our back and forth shot. Oh, good. We got him fragmented. That is awesome. Alright, we'll go ahead and hit him with a cannon. Okay, we didn't do any damage, but we could have broken him up, so that's why I did that. I don't think we can rotate and fire, so we might as well move if we're going to do anything. Get a little bit closer. And I can't use this guy yet. We'll move up here and shoot. So I should be able, with the dragoons, maybe to tie this guy up and then use the pikemen to best advantage here. Okay. Start moving down the road. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get into a good position with my musketmen here. I actually don't know how I'm going to take this hill, to be honest with you. I think we move into the woods here. A little bit beyond, perhaps. Okay. Well, I can at least shoot at him, so that's good. can't follow up on him. That's one thing that kind of frustrates me, is when somebody falls back like that, you can't immediately engage with them again, which is extremely frustrating. And oftentimes it will leave your troops into a position where they're super vulnerable, which I'm obviously not a fan of. All right. So we've more or less won this flank, so I'm going to try and take advantage of it up on this hill. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that, but we're going to try. And I'll start moving this way so that I can get over there to help. Now, running away guys can rally, so that's always a thing. Okay, we want to rotate the face. But I can't charge this turn because that was too much of a rotation. All right, who hasn't moved? You haven't moved. I'm so tempted to just charge here, but I really don't want to because I've got my men into a good position. So let's just fire again. All right, who else hasn't gone? You haven't gone. Let's get into the woods. And we'll rotate the face. I think next turn what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in here, I'm going to shoot, and then I'm going to go after him with the pikemen. I'm kind of tired of playing with these guys. Okay, that's it for this turn. Let's go ahead and end turn. This might be the last turn I do. I think I've done a decent job of kind of showcasing the mechanics of the game. This is a little bit more involved battle with the terrain and everything, and it's going to take me quite a bit of time to get things into position. Okay, so we just fragmented that guy, so he's not likely to stick around. We get a charge because we were pursuing, and we just managed to run into him more or less by pursuing that troop. So there we go. We get to charge. And we're going to impact here. He's already fragmented, so he's going to immediately break. And we're just going to continue to pursue, and he's going to take more damage. We honestly don't want to pursue into their line, though. That would be bad. Okay, we managed to re-disrupt that guy. Okay, so this guy just retreated from us. Cannon fire there. Okay. So more or less, as we can see here, we have a couple different objectives. So we have Route A, which is routing at least 40% of their troops and 25% more than we have lost. So we haven't routed anybody. None of our side has routed. So right now, we're all positive. So we are able to get that up to 40%, we'd win. Or routing 60%. So just by routing these musketmen, we actually had those numbers go up quite a bit. I think we have to engage the hill to actually get anywhere near as much as we need to win, because, I mean, look at how many guys they have. These guys were mostly just here to skirmish with us, but I think I kind of showcased a little bit of how the mechanics for this game work. Let's go ahead and try and smash this guy if I can. So I'm going to come in here and charge. We do have a percentage chance to lose, but I'm trying to tie him up, really. So as long as we don't lose enough that we fall back, we should be good. And then we'll go in with the charge of our pikemen, which should do really heavy damage here. Or at least, get us a good victory, perhaps. And then we'll follow up with our light infantry, our musketmen. And we've already fragmented them, so they're on their way to routing. And I probably should have hit them with cannons before I did that, but all well. Let's go ahead and rotate around. So we're facing the enemy. Fire at them. Move up. I already said I was going to do this, so might as well. And then we're going to charge with our pikemen, see if we can pull that off. I have a feeling we won't. Nope. Oh, we did manage to hit them, though, so that worked out, and we just broke them, so that was quick. Now, downside is if we continue to chase with our pikemen, then we'll be in trouble. I think that's the biggest part of this game is just... First off, you gotta rout the enemy in the first place, but then you have to contend with your units as they kind of fall a little bit out of control, and sometimes this lack of control can really cost you, as more than likely this unit here is going to get absolutely slammed with damage, as I believe we're starting to get in range of the Pike and Shot guys here. So more than likely they're going to start raining fire down on my Cornish pikemen here, and it's possible I'll be driven into their pikemen and get slaughtered. But that's always kind of the chance you have when you're trying to break an opponent. This is a little bit of a unique case, but oftentimes in this time period specifically, a lot of things come down to cavalry versus cavalry, and we didn't really see any of that because the enemy has very limited cavalry, and they're in a very well-defended zone. But oftentimes what you'll have is you'll have a line of infantry, and then you'll have your flanks of cavalry, and the flanks of cavalry will fight it out, and your line of infantry in the center will fight it out with their line. So you have center to center of infantry, and you have flanks of cavalry. And the key to victory can be either your center or your flanks. And so far I've seen the cavalry play a bigger part, but that could be because I am playing the Royalist side in the campaign that I played. That was very much the case where I had, in that case, I was the defender. And I had fortifications. We're not seeing fortifications here, but that is a thing in the game. If you're defending, you will have an option or the ability to have fortifications, and that's going to give you, just like the cover here, it's going to give you a defensive bonus against shots, as well as if they try and attack you in melee over the wall, well then obviously you're going to have a bonus there. And that was an interesting battle, but it was a battle that was decided by the cavalry flank. So I was able to, somewhat by luck, because in my opinion they had a better their cavalry was better than mine, I was able to roll their cavalry. And one thing that about this game is, as friendly units rout, or in this case the enemy units, but when friendly units to the unit that is routing routes and they're nearby other friendlies, it can be a domino effect. So one routing unit can cause another unit to go displaced, and that displaced unit is at a disadvantage, and then that means they take more damage, and then that makes them more likely to go fragmented or break. And when they break, they cause other friendlies to perhaps lose their morale state down to disrupted or whatever. And it can be a big domino effect. And that is exactly what happened in the one battle that I had in my campaign, where I was able to start getting some lucky breaks on the enemy, and then that started to disrupt other enemy cavalry units, which in turn were easier to break. And then when they broke, it continued that domino effect, and eventually I was able to roll almost all of their cavalry, and at that point their entire flank collapsed. So that can be kind of the strategy of this game. So as much as the mechanics of it, your moving around are fairly simple. You just right click on your space, and then you right click the action you want to do. When you want to fight an enemy, you right click on them, and then you choose either shooting or melee, and whether or not you can actually do those actions, you perform them. Pretty simple, but the actual execution's pretty interesting. It is an interesting, or pretty decently in-depth is the word I'm looking for, strategy game, outside of the fact that it is maybe simplistic in its seeming mechanics. Now, it does play pretty similarly to a board game, so if you're used to war game, tabletop games, that kind of stuff, this is going to be pretty familiar to you, at least the way it feels, because it plays out similarly to games that I have played tabletop nature. But along with that, you have a lot of RNG. So if you are not a fan of RNG, this is not going to be the game for you, because I don't feel like the RNG is unfair. And all the instances that I've played, I feel like it is fairly balanced as far as the way things go. But if RNG is going to be one of those things that really bothers you, I really think this is not the game for you, because there's always a chance roll of something really bad happening. For instance, my unit here that was out in the open getting disrupted, that's technically a bad roll for me, because it sets a precedent of this unit being on a downslope of failure. Same thing with the cavalry. I did a cavalry charge, should have gone my way, but it didn't go my way. It was a failed roll that ended up in my unit being displaced. This displacement is still around. Now, there's a chance that the unit will rally. We saw a little bit of that with this unit, was displaced at a point and then rallied. But again, that's a roll. There's a chance it will happen. There's a chance it won't happen. So those kind of things can bother you just because of the number of die rolls involved. But And we've seen that with the cannons. The cannons shoot. They oftentimes, as a matter of fact, every case I've ever seen, they always have a chance of doing 0 damage. It seems like you get 0 damage an awful lot. So it's just one of those things. But if that kind of thing doesn't bother you too much, as I said, I don't feel like it's ever unfair. I always feel like the AI has the same roll chances that I do, which is an interesting point to put out, because oftentimes with these RNG games, one way that the AI tries to simulate difficulty is by cheating. I don't feel like this game cheats. As a matter of fact, I feel like the AI is fairly competent. Maybe we didn't get a good showcase of that, but every battle I've ever been in, I feel like the AI has put up a pretty good fight, and they've been a good opponent. And because of that, I don't feel like this game really needs to cheat, and maybe that's why they don't. So in that way, the RNG doesn't bother me because I feel like it's fair. I don't feel like the AI has roles that I can't achieve. They're the same roles. It just, your luck or their luck at play at times. But good strategy can overrule luck in this game, in my opinion. But even with the best strategy, there's always going to be a roll. So just keep that in mind. So in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I know we only looked at the beginning stages of a battle, and there was a lot of explaining going on rather than, really getting deep into the battle itself. But this is a game where the battles are lengthy. And I don't want this to be 2-hour-long video, although I don't think it would be. I think it'd maybe be another half an hour beyond this. But that's the kind of thing that you might expect. When you have a bigger scope battle like this, there are smaller scope battles, and you can do that if you want, that are going to be quicker, for sure. This is a little bit bigger scope battle, so it's going to take a little bit more time. There needs to be a little bit more strategic handling of the situation, as just charging uphill could be bad for me. But as I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at Pike and Shot. And I hope you have also enjoyed the series where I'm going to be looking at these Steam games. So this is Mouse Gunner signing out.